A clap one on three. One, two, three. What's up, everybody? Welcome to another episode of True Crime and Cocktails. We're so glad that you're here. As always, I am your host, Lauren Ash, and as always, I am joined by my co-hostess with the most S, Christy Oxborrow. How you feeling?
Great. You know,
Fantastic.
I'll say it. I'm a little pooped because we did
Pooped.
we did some yard sailing this weekend.
Oh, sure. Yeah, yeah.
And look, I'm gonna tell you, nothing gets me more than going through other people's crap. You know what I mean? like, like
Yeah.
I wanna see it spread out. I want your 25-cent knickknacks. Like I
Yeah.
am there for it. And I don't think I've gone to one in at least 2 or 3 years, if not pre-COVID.
Yeah.
And I mean, yes, you get to one where it's like one table with three items and it's sad and you feel bad not getting anything. And you also feel bad taking less than a minute to decide, I don't want to be here and backing away slowly. Um, but overall, I live for the season.
Yeah.
I really love it. I spent $1. I would have paid her twice that much, on these little, like, Cabbage Patch figurines from my childhood.
I remember those.
I was like, "Bam, done." And they knew they had the sale because I
Mm,
walked up to the table, I saw it, and I gasped.
mm,
And that's the moment she knew she had me. I was like, "There
right.
we go. That's it.
I
Here
think
for
that's
it."
worth $1. I think that's worth two. I think you're right.
Oh, I would have paid more. There was also a little strawberry shortcake that I was like, "Yes, please." And so I did pick those up, and I was like, "Here you go, and good day." And then we went to another one and they had a Boston Bruins lamp, which made me gasp because I'm like, my youngest is gonna love that. And the guy knew from my gasp he had me.
Did you haggle?
Oh no, I'm immediately uncomfortable about haggling,
Yeah.
but if I I've been known to do a garage sale or two in
Sure.
my day. Sure,
Oh,
the
yeah.
last one broke me mentally. Um,
I
because we were
remember.
just so busy with the show at that point, and then I ended up getting so sick, and then it was fresh hell. I always get people that wanna always haggle, always. Like, they'll put 8 items down, and they'll be like, "I'll give you 10." And then my brain is quickly trying to figure out, like, how much did I have each of these for? Is this what it's I can't handle it, but I always give in to the hagglers because I'm like, "Just take it and go, away we go."
Yeah.
Um but yeah, I've decided it's just too much work because make sure everything's clean. It's always labeled in specific area. Like I always have mine. I pride myself on the organization of my yard sales.
Oh, yeah. I
I
mean,
do.
you're next level. You're next level. I've been keeping stuff for an elusive yard sale for, oh God, 6 years. I've been in this house.
Sure.
Yeah, and I never do it, and I don't think I will. I just it's too much work.
It
It's too
is.
much to think about, so I'm just like I'm taking stuff to the Goodwill that I'm gonna tell you, high-end stuff, good items. You know
Oh,
what I mean?
sure.
I once dropped off a bunch of stuff to the Goodwill, and there was like a Santa's Little Helper plush that I had a boyfriend, I think, had won for me
Oh,
at
sure.
Universal Studios once. Pristine. And the young guy who was helping me unload the car was like, "You cool if I take this?" I was like,
Ah,
"Yeah, man, like, please, I
of
don't give a
course.
shit if you're supposed to do that or not. I'm not gonna rat you out, dude."
Of course not.
He said I think he said it was like, "Oh, my girlfriend would love this," or something, and I was like, "Yeah, man, have at it." And then he goes then he goes, "How are you getting rid of so much great stuff?" And I felt like I had to, like, give him something good, like, I don't know, and I just went, "Break up." Which I don't even think was true at the time. And he just went, "Oh, of course." Because I just don't think they
Mhm.
were used to getting, like, those kinds of donations where it was, like,
Sure.
everything I was handing them, he was like, "This stuff is nice, like, this
Like
is great." Like, it
brand
was
new quality. Yep.
exactly, and I was like,
Mhm.
"I just don't have the time or the energy to do this."
Yeah.
But the next thing on my list, and I love that I've planned this for July because, spoiler alert, uh we're my boyfriend and I are doing a play. I keep talking about it. Listen,
Of
in Los
course.
Angeles, June 27th, 28th, 29th. We've never talked about this before. We've written it, we're starring in it. It's a time suck, you know, and I say that is I don't mean that negatively, but, like, I'm like, this is kind of all I'm doing for the next month, as well as because when
Yes.
I say that, it's like, we still have the obligations that you do in life. There's still things that you have to do. There's appointments,
Yeah.
there's obligations, there's meetings, like, don't get me wrong, it's not that we're doing this 12 hours a day every day, by any stretch, but I'm just like, I can't add anything else extracurricular right now. And for
Sure.
me, cleaning my home in a significant way is something I would describe as extracurricular, you know what I mean?
Yep.
So, as
Yep.
people may or may not know, I have a room in the house that I don't go into.
Correct.
We've talked about this on the show before.
Yeah.
July, that's on the schedule for
Oh,
July, and I'm like, "We're gonna get in there in a significant way," because now part of my bedroom has become overflow, my office has overflow, and I'm like, "I gotta just purge. I gotta just
okay.
purge." And look, here's the thing, I wouldn't consider myself a hoarder, legitimately, and I would admit it because and I'll prove this with my next statement, I understand hoarders.
Yeah.
You
Look,
know what I
I
mean?
will
Like
say, I've been in your home.
yeah,
There aren't just paths through things, it's a lot of floor space for
right.
walking.
Right, thank you.
So,
Yes.
yes.
There is it's just starting to get bad is the point. Not it's not hoarder level, I wouldn't describe it that way, but it is starting to get like, you gotta just here's what it is. What I understand about hoarding, and if you listen to this show, you know I love psychology. What I understand is the emotional, component
Attachment.
that we can
Mm.
project onto an item.
Oh, for sure.
So it's like, this small thing, this person gave it to me and this is what it means. That's why I can never get rid of it is because then that would mean that would mean that that person's going to perceive me to not love them or not like them, right?
Sure.
Now, we all know that as adults, we learned that the truth is that that's not the case and that, people understand that over time you may have to get rid of things, like not everything can be
Sure.
so sentimental that you can never get rid of it. That's still we're still on that journey. I'm still on that journey. I've gotten
Of course.
a lot better with it, surely.
Sure.
Um, it's still it's starting to add up in there. Starting to add
Yeah.
up, and now's the time excuse me, July's the time that we're
Yeah.
gonna do a real cull, you know what I mean? And I can't get
And
hung
get
up
it
on
out.
it. You just gotta get it out.
Yeah.
That's the
To
big thing,
quote
because then I start to go, "This is an item that's so nice, it's so valuable. I should have a yard sale," and then it sits in another box in another room for another 2 years. Like,
yeah,
I just everything must go, you know?
it's time.
It's
To
time.
quote the Black Eyed Peas, "You gotta get." I don't even think
I don't even why did I drink at that exact moment? Not in a million years did I think that was what you were about to say. You gotta get.
I don't even know if that's a proper lyric. But that because
Well,
that they could be saying something completely different, and that's just how I've always heard it,
yeah,
like that 50 Cent lyric that I misheard for years.
yeah.
Um, so, yeah, because I thought they have that song where I think it's will.i.am that goes like, "Gotta get," but maybe now fuck, now I think I'm wrong. The point is, so should I just drive down, make sure I have, like, an extra large SUV style vehicle, and just, like, load up my shit? Because if you think I didn't immediately think, "Well, if she'd really like to sell this stuff, I could just go pick a bunch of it up and bring it home and sell it for her in the garage sale that I just said, literally just said I will never have again." Um, there is also a lot of my stuff at your home.
That's not a problem. That's alright.
Yeah.
I think at this point, I'm just going, I can't ship it to you because it would be a shipping container. I kid.
Yeah.
I kid. But am I also holding it hostage a little bit to try and get you to lure you down here? Yeah. I mean, I'll admit it.
Look,
I'm not a liar.
so say I look into U-Haul pricing.
I
Can you
mean,
imagine me driving
it's
it?
a
Because
that's a long drive.
it would have to be a large U-Haul. Because that's the joke. It's like, you can fly there and back, easier said than done when you have, flight issues, but you could do the flights, but then it's like, but then getting all of that home, that I'm just like, it would be nice to have a vehicle, but then I'm like, that's also a 3-day drive. I mean, I'll say it now, I've never seen Washington. It's not a
Yeah.
no.
Look, here's the other reality.
Yeah.
My lovely boyfriend and I, we've been talking about, like, one of our short-term goals, which is actually, I guess, a long-term goal. I don't know if we call it even a goal. One of the things we're talking about doing
Yeah.
is seeing all the Major League Baseball parks in the United States, and of course, there is one in
That's
Canada.
nice.
Um, but that's something that both of us enjoy. We were recently in New York City. We went to Yankee Stadium. It was both of our first times there. And look, it doesn't matter. Look, now this is go with me. I'm going to go on a tangent for a second.
Can't wait.
Very sweetly, he was like, "Hey, when we go to Yankee Stadium, I'll buy us hats. I'll buy us Yankees hats." And I think his intention is like every time we go to a stadium, we can get a hat of the team
Which is
as like
sweet
a
until you realize that's 32 hats.
well, it's a lot of hats, but
Yeah.
more than that, more than that.
You're so
You'll love
diehard
this.
Blue Jays that you're like, "I
I
don't
was
let
like,
Yankees in my home."
yeah, yeah. I was like, I at first because I didn't want to like negate the sentiment, right?
Of
I was like, that's
course.
very sweet. I love that. And then I like stewed. I grappled with it. You know what I mean? Like at first I didn't say no. And then over time I was like, I have to speak my truth. And the truth is this.
Yeah.
There are many other teams whose hats I will wear. I have a Dodgers hat. I have a San Diego Padres hat. You
Sure.
know, both when I went to those stadiums. I
Mhm.
said, but the Dodgers, that's National League in the Blue Jays are the American League, like, they're so that already feels better to me.
Mhm.
I don't wanna disparage the Padres, but, I haven't felt like it's been, you know, I don't need to get into how teams are doing. The point is this, I was like, "I will not place a Yankees or Red Sox hat on my head for as long as I live. I'm sorry." Like, I was like, "I just don't think I could show my face at home." Like, there's ways that you can do mental gymnastics around other teams that don't feel like a threat, that don't feel like they're built because they have a lot of money, you know? I mean, I don't need to get political about it, but the point is this, I was like, "I can't," and then finally I was just like, "I'm sorry, I can't do it. Thank you for the offer of the lovely gift. I cannot
Mhm.
do it."
Mhm. Okay. Couple of things.
Please.
1, I'm madly in love with you. Just know that. 2, 1,000% same.
Right? Can't do
There's
it.
there's not gonna be a I mean, I was willing to wear an LA Kings hat sitting in an
Yes.
LA at the LA rink when they were playing someone that was not my team.
Yes.
If my team was there that night, I would have been fucking decked out,
Yep.
head to toe, full flyers.
Yep.
Absolutely. But in that moment, I was like, I will, obviously, I'll wear the hat because, you're in the place, you do the thing, you do what you do. But there are a handful of teams. Get the fuck out. I would
Yeah.
if for some reason I happen to be in that city and people are like, "You could go to a game." I'm not wearing the merch of that team,
Right.
regardless as to who they're playing.
Yes. And
Normally,
this is
yeah, I will wear the gear of whoever's home team it is, assuming I'm not there for the, away team. But yeah, there's a specific number of teams where I'm like, "Never. I'm
yeah,
never
and to be
wearing their
clear,
merch."
I love watching live sports in general. I love
Yeah,
watching live baseball. Don't care the team. Don't care. I was happy to go to the Yankees game. I'm like, I'll see like it's not like I'm gonna boycott seeing
of
the team
course.
play. I wanna go. I wanna be in the stadium. And there was a hat that said Yankee Stadium on it. And I
Oh.
paused because I was like, well, that is my memory. And then I was like, it has the word Yankees on it. Gross. Like, but there's
I
just,
get it.
you know what I'm saying? There's just
Mhm.
certain teams that you're like, I just can't do it. The Yankees and the Red Sox for me, I can never do it. Another one on that list, Texas Rangers. Never in a million years. I'll never
Wow.
forgive them for what happened. And I don't even need to talk about it because anybody who knows knows.
I know.
Enough.
There's a
You
reason I've
think
been
that you could
harboring
send your goons to physically attack a player on the field? Get out of town.
I've been
Get out of
harboring
town.
hate for Detroit Red Wings since 1997, baby,
There it
so
is.
I understand.
There it is.
And Chicago since 2010. I get it.
All of this is to
Get it.
say, the Chicago Cubs, I'll wear a Chicago Cubs
Oh,
hat. Why is
Cubbies,
that
of
different?
course.
Because they have heart. The city loves them. It's a part of the culture in that city.
You also did live there for a chunk of
I
time.
did also live there. I went to a lot of games at Wrigley. It's a
Yeah.
beautiful experience. But again, to me, it doesn't threaten my love for the Jays. You know what I mean? It's like one of those
Sure.
things where it's like certain things are threats and certain things aren't.
Sure. Like, some of those other teams like the Cubs and Dodgers and stuff are just like they're like the boy you flirt with that you see out at the bar every weekend and you're just like,
Right.
"Yeah, okay. Hey, how's it going?" But like Yankees are that bad boy that are I mean, STDs.
Yes.
He's not even gonna give you money for an Uber. It's like,
No.
"Get out."
Trust fund babies who've
Yes.
never had to work for anything.
Yeah. Yeah, I
Yeah,
get
their
that.
rich dads will get them off of whatever they do wrong.
Of
No,
course.
no.
Of course. And
And the
yeah,
true love of my life, the Toronto Blue Jays, they see me out with the Chicago Cubs and they go, "That's cute. That's all right.
they're not
That's all right."
threatened.
They're not threatened. They see me talking in a bar to the Yankees, then we're in a conversation. When we get home that night, there is a talk. That's
Oh,
an argument.
you're going to bed angry. Yeah, like
You are
that's
going to bed angry.
he
They go,
he
"Love
might
this."
he might not even stay over.
That
He
night,
he might be
he's
so
like
heated he needs to go to his
he's
own
like, "I need
place,
some space."
even though he hasn't slept at his own place in months
Oh, yeah,
because you
and
guys are
that's
secretly moved in, which
of
that's just
course.
how it works.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
I couldn't
Just
be
give up your
happier.
place. Give up your place. What are you
Yeah.
trying to prove to who? Come on.
I couldn't be happier that we're talking about you and your fictional boyfriend, Toronto Blue Jay.
The yeah, the institution that is the Toronto Blue Jays. But
Yeah,
you'll love that I'm gonna bring it back around because I realize why I made this point to begin with. We've been
yeah.
talking about renting an RV and going to all the different parks. So all I'm saying is there
Mhm.
is actually a possibility in which we can load that I mean, it's an RV. It's gonna be big.
Yeah.
We've been talking about how we're like I said I was like, "I think we need to, like, plan some shorter jaunts first." Like, I don't know that I'm
Sure.
comfortable with us just heading out. Like, yeah, can I plan a trip? Can I, organize where
Yes.
we're going, maps, times, places?
Of
Of
course.
course, not a problem. Do I trust that we have the knowledge of, like, how to RV? No. I
Oh,
read a thing about one person's experience that was like, "Well, this person didn't know that you weren't supposed to do da 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 da," and was, like, using all this terminology, and I was like, "Okay, this is a whole other world." And I think we start small.
mhm.
We start with a couple, like, long weekends. We rent. We rent,
Sure.
right? If we
Yeah.
like it, if we take to it, who knows what's next? So what I'm saying is that in the next 3 to 7 years, there's a possibility we'll have an RV and make that trip to you.
What I love, so many things. First
Like,
of all, the visual of you driving an RV.
yeah.
Third, the visual of you pulling up and hearing like as you pull up in front of my house.
Yeah.
I mean, this writes itself. Um, I also love that in my head, you said, "We'll load up an RV," and then I finished it going, "Oh my god," and then we'll, like, meet in the middle, have, like, a weekend together, we'll take the other stuff. It'll be like a weird drug exchange without the drugs.
Yeah.
Wow.
I also like that in your initial scenario, I
Yeah.
am absolutely Cousin Eddie in Christmas Vacation.
Shitter's full.
Yeah.
Uh, I I yeah. I
Yeah.
mean, look, I'll tell you this right now. I do have a neighbor that I would he'll call people on you if he sees the second something's wrong. So if
Right.
you put a tube anywhere near that, I mean, I'd let you get away with it, but I'm just
Thank
telling
you.
you, he
Yeah, that's a whole other part of this thing, right?
Oh, yeah.
Is that we gotta figure out how that and then, of course, we were talking and he was like, "Well, we could go in with one of those converted Sprinter vans," and I was like, "But they don't have a bathroom." And
Facilities.
and I don't know how comfortable I'm going to be if we're on long road trips. I'm not saying we need to number 2 in the van, but I'm saying I wanna be able to pee, otherwise we're gonna be stopping every 45 minutes, you know what I mean?
That is true.
But then I'm also like a chemical toilet that feels like it's out of my realm. of knowledge or like something I never thought I'd be into, you know?
Of course.
Not that anyone's into chemical toilets, to be clear. I think it's something you have to do in order to have
Mhm.
the experience, you know?
I guarantee, and I love that I'm guaranteeing this,
Yeah,
that there is at least one person in the world who's like, "I love the smell of a chemical toilet."
for sure,
I guarantee it.
for sure.
Um, just quick question.
Please.
Now, in this RV world,
Uh-huh.
which is actually where I assume you'd purchase it from,
Thank you very
um,
much.
would you be sleeping in the RV?
Yeah,
Okay.
which
I worried that would be too close to camping.
well, here's my number one concern,
Yeah.
safety.
Yes.
Safety. Do I
Oh,
think
yeah.
I'll sleep well in the RV?
No,
Absolutely not.
no.
But to your point, yeah, we could just get a big van and then it's like you stop at like hotels along the way, but I think part of it was like, no, we live out of the RV. I don't even know what's coming out of my mouth. But here's my other concern. So let's say we bring the dogs, because obviously I'm going to want
Yeah.
to take the dogs on this whole thing. Are you
Of
kidding me?
course.
Being in a tiny captain's hat, like first mate, get out
Yeah.
of town.
Yeah.
Um, but then I'm like, what happens when we go to the baseball game? Unless it's a dog friendly night, which most parks have at least once a year, and we try and make sure that we plan it around those nights. What am I parking the RV somewhere and leaving? Now listen, it would all have the air conditioning that you can run and
Of
whatever from
course.
what I've been reading. Like it's not that the dogs would be in danger of overheating, but they would be in like what if somebody breaks in the RV? How am I
Sure.
ever going to enjoy the ball game? I'm gonna be
Yeah.
terrified. Then what? Okay, I put some security cameras on there that attach to my phone. I can't get there quick enough. How do
Security
people do
cameras.
this? How do people live like
How
this?
do people parent?
Oh,
I get it.
yeah.
I get it. Now you're gonna love this. Okay. Halfway between Los Angeles
Uh-huh.
and Moose Jaw, Saskatchewan. I'm not even gonna type the full Saskatchewan.
Don't need to.
Let's see. Travelmath.com. I don't Pocatello, Idaho.
Pocatello, Idaho.
That is apparently the halfway, and I just say Pocatello, Idaho. Okay, great. Um, oh, gorgeous, actually. Um, they've got mountains. It's 12 hours and 48 minutes from here.
Okay,
Michelle,
hold
you're gonna
on.
love this. I don't hate it.
Well, and how far is Pocatello from here? 11 and a half hours.
It's reasonable. Does it? Stay.
You could drive that in a day.
I
And you
mean,
do it in 2 to be comfortable. Again, I don't know where I'm sleeping in the RV. I'm already terrified.
why is it famous? Why is it famous? It's known as the gateway to the Northwest.
Well,
Oh my God. As pioneers, gold miners, and settlers traveled the Oregon Trail, they passed through the area south of town. I mean, Oregon Trail.
now we're getting somewhere.
I'm just like, is this? I mean, okay, I'm immediately going to go to images, but like, there were some nice mountain shots that I'm like, oh, I do like a mountain.
Yeah,
But like, I mean, come on, look at that,
gorgeous.
right?
Yeah.
I mean, the idea of both of us driving for a day or two to get to a spot to do a handoff.
Yes.
And the true joke would be because, of course, we would each bring probably our partners for the sake of like for how long the drive is and all of this kind of stuff. And the true joke will be like, you and I will be in communication for how much stuff there is.
Yeah.
And I'll tell my husband, of course it's going to fit.
Yeah.
And then he'll see the stuff and he'll be like, wow, you guys brought a lot. And you'll be like, well, that's actually all going back with you. And then it's a problem.
Oh, if you yeah, there will definitely still be things that of yours that I'm taking back to LA with me.
What I love is this was not at all part of your July schedule, but I'm like,
No.
this feels fun. Why does it this feels like a fun thing.
Really come alive at the idea of this RV trip. I love that I was like, I don't know how I would go to a baseball game with Bean in the RV. I mean, how do people do that? You're already like, I'm looking up how we can do this. And she's still stuck on like, this sounds like a great idea.
Oh yeah,
Look, I
I
mean,
want to be
I'm
I want to be
game.
clear. I'm not part of the RV.
Of
I'm
course.
I'm getting luxury SUV rented from like Enterprise or something.
Yeah.
Um,
Oh, and look, I mean, we could do this drive in my vehicle for sure.
can all the stuff fit in the vehicle?
Well, with our suitcases, probably not.
Yeah. Also, can't imagine what that would be like going across the border. And they're like, "What's all that?" And it's like,
You do have to declare it. Well,
right.
when I moved back from Chicago to Toronto, I drove in the moving truck.
Right.
And you do have to have like a manifest that lists everything. But as long as you have a list, like, and it's your own belongings, which this is your own belongings.
Technically it is. I love
I
that
think
it's like
if you tried to get them up to speed on the plan, you might lose them. Like it's like, well, listen, she had a bunch of my stuff, so we met in the mill, which was Pocatello, Idaho, to do a handoff. I feel like that might raise
yes.
some alarm bells for them. I don't
Yeah.
know whether I would offer that. I think I would just say you have the stuff, and if you get asked, then you can,
I went to her place in Idaho.
right.
But then I'm worried that they're gonna be like, "Where's she live?" And I'm already sweating bullets because 'cause I'm like, "I don't know a street
Well,
name in
I
this."
mean, I guess
Yeah.
at that point, if they press it further, then you can try and explain to them and be like, "Have you heard of podcasts?" Well, there's an episode. It's an episode about James Hicks. It's episode 173 of award-winning podcast True Crime and Cocktails.
Skip
Check
ahead
it
20
out.
minutes. 20 minutes in, then you'll get what we're saying.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Just
Yeah.
dip in, and
Mhm.
then maybe it'll make sense, you know?
Yeah. I also would like it to be clear that I'm absolutely well aware of how insane first of all, it's also insane that there is so much of my stuff, taking up space in your home. Secondly, how insane it is to put on you loading all of that stuff. Like,
Oh,
shoving it in boxes and loading it all up, and then drive just a quiet, quick 12 hours, and then not to mention the 12 hours back home. There's not a major league ballpark in Idaho. Like,
well, what's along the way? Now all I hear is gotta plan a route.
well, immediately I'm just like, "God, I wonder what's fun between here and there?" Like, that is immediately because I do love a road trip.
I love a road trip.
I will spend 2 weeks just making the playlist.
Yeah.
And no, not playlist. There has to be multiple because you don't know what your vibe is.
Yeah.
Until you hit that pavement, I don't know what's happening. Until your tires hit that pavement, you don't know
Yeah.
what bitch is driving. Because when you
What
get partway
bitch is
there,
driving?
well, it's just, you're a different person depending on what song you're listening to. Like, I've
Sure,
had
sure.
so many um playlists where I'm like, "Oh, I love this song," so I just end up putting all these songs I love, but then once I'm in the car and once it has to compete with the of you driving down a highway,
Mhm.
suddenly some of those songs just aren't what you're feeling,
Yeah.
and suddenly you're hitting repeat on a single song that you didn't think would be the hit of the trip, but it is.
Yeah.
So you gotta have so many different playlists because you don't know what your vibe's gonna be.
Totally. Listen, you work on the playlists. I'll start
Yes.
making the manifest of all of the items.
But then, of course, I'm like, "Ah, okay. Do I fly down, help with that part, and then the 3 of us get halfway, and then I just make my husband
Drive
drive?"
12 hours alone. I mean, no. I think the other joke will
Oh.
be, we're gonna
Yeah,
get this whole thing in motion. This is how we work. We're
yeah,
gonna get this whole thing in motion. We're gonna get it
yeah.
planned. I'm gonna go in that room. I'm gonna corral all of your stuff, and then the joke will be, I'm gonna go, "Huh, this actually isn't that much."
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, and my favorite about this whole thing is I'm gonna forget shortly after we've had this conversation, and then my husband will hear this episode,
Yes.
and he'll be like, "I'm not driving to Idaho." I'll be like, "Why would you drive to Idaho?" And he'll be like, "'Cause it's halfway," and I'll go, "Ah, yes." And
Yeah.
yes, you will. I'll share the driving duty, it's fine. Um, oh god. I've never been to Idaho.
Same.
I'm just saying. I mean, I've been to so few, states. It's a very large country.
Untapped.
Yeah. But I'm just like,
Untapped.
that just feels like a damn good time,
Listen, it's the gateway to the Northwest.
right?
Yeah.
I have an
Well,
Oregon Trail shirt that would be perfect.
she's got the wardrobe planned. She's planning the playlists.
Yeah, I guess really when it comes down to it, I'm all about the vibe.
I get
Gotta
that.
get.
On that note, let's talk about this case. Oh, gotta get. That
I
is
gotta oh my god,
we
I gotta
we're
look up
gonna
that
have to
lyric.
confirm that that lyric exists, because if it doesn't, that's even better. Well, listen, before I get into it, what you drinking over there? You got something fun going on?
Well, I've got the traditional water, and I guess at this point, the traditional Slurpee, although it's just called a slush because the 7-Eleven machines were almost all down.
Jesus.
It was disheartening. It was disheartening.
Well, listen, I got a water, I got a Diet Coke. I was imbibing yesterday, so we're taking it easy today. Keeping it real.
Of
Sometimes,
course.
you gotta get. Uh,
I have to think of what song that is that I'm thinking of.
there's a lot of question marks. Let's put it that way.
Yeah. Yeah, I've just added more questions, not answered any.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
Well, listen, let's get into the internet. We're in the internet. Oh God. Let's get into this case. We're of course talking the case of James Hicks on this episode of the show. If you're not familiar, as I am not, have no fear. Christy's got a synopsis written right here. In the summer of 1977, Jenny Hicks went missing in Newport, Maine. Her husband, James, claims that Jenny simply ran off with another man, but police were unable to find any trace of her. Police eventually ran out of leads and the case went cold until Sherilyn Towers mysteriously disappeared from the same town in the fall of 1982. And coincidentally, Sherilyn was last seen with Jenny Hicks's husband, James. So what happened to Jenny and Sherilyn? Was James somehow involved? And what secrets is James hiding? Christy Oxborrow investigates. Now I'm realizing I said Sherilyn and then it said Geraldine. I think it's
Did
Sherilyn.
I put 2 different?
You put
That's on me. I'm
Jenny
so
and
sorry.
Geraldine. It should be Jenny and Sherilyn.
No, it is Geraldine. I'm so sorry. That's on me. Here's the
Wait,
thing. There are so many similar names in this. I miswrote it in the synopsis.
copy that.
So that's on me. I'm the tit.
You're not a tit.
It is
So
it
it's
is
Geraldine
Geraldine.
Towers,
Yes.
not Sherilyn.
Correct. Even though I did put Sherilyn twice and finished her off with a Geraldine, it was supposed to be
And I
um
also just want to remind everyone, this is the time when other podcasts would say, let's go and take that again. And that's not what we do here. If we cock
yeah.
up, we just let it ride.
If we make a mistake,
Yeah.
we eat it and we let you know.
Yeah. Yeah.
We let you know that this is just who we are.
2 women getting by.
Getting by. Soon to be 2 women in Idaho. Anyhow.
Yep.
Oh, God. So, disclaimer, as always, this episode will contain mentions of intimate partner violence and suicide, so trigger warning for those who need it. In the fall of 1982, Geraldine Lee Towers was a 34-year-old mother of 3 living in Newport, Maine. She had a boyfriend who had recently gone to jail, and while she went to visit him a few times, Geraldine was looking to get out of the relationship. Her last visit to the jail was on October 12th. On October 16th, Geraldine took her kids bowling for the afternoon. Her mother and stepfather joined them. When they were about to leave, Geraldine's mother offered to take the kids home with her so that Geraldine could have a few hours to herself. Her stepfather dropped her off at the Gateway Lounge around 6:30 p.m. He told her to call when she needed a ride home. Geraldine lived in one side of a duplex on Marginal Way, while her mother and stepfather lived on the other side of the duplex. The stepfather waited up for Geraldine's call, but it never came. Then around 1 a.m., he heard a vehicle with a loud exhaust pull into the driveway. The driver of the vehicle turned the headlights off, so Geraldine's stepfather just assumed she'd gotten a ride home and he went to bed. The next morning, they discovered that Geraldine never made it home, which was out of character for her. Her family reported her missing the next day, but police did not really take it too seriously. They told the family that Geraldine probably just met a man and went off with him. But her family said that Geraldine would never just up and leave her children. Also, Geraldine had recently been hospitalized with a liver problem, and she was currently taking medication, and the medication was left at home.
Ugh.
I would also love to see these statistics on how often a police officer says, oh, I bet that woman just ran off with a man when a woman's missing versus when a man is missing.
Yeah.
Do they ever say, I bet he just ran off with a woman? Or do they go, oh, that's weird and look for him?
Well, this is like also the cases where, Gacy, of course, comes to mind, where it was all those teenage boys and the police time after time was like, oh, the boy probably just ran away. And every parent was like, no, that's not right. And spoiler alert, it wasn't.
Yeah. Again, to be clear, not all police.
Listen.
We're not saying all of them.
Yeah.
So days later, because there was still no word from Geraldine, the police finally go to the Gateway Lounge where Geraldine was last seen. The bartender said they saw Geraldine on the night of October 16th and that she left a few hours later with a local man named James Hicks. When officers went to interview James, he was nervous as hell, including shaking so badly that he spilled a glass of water. But
Okay.
James said he didn't even go to the Gateway Lounge that night. He told them if he did go there, he would have stayed until closing and then left on his own. When police said there was a witness who saw him leaving with Geraldine, James said, oh, well, we might have walked out together, but we weren't together. We just left at the same time. That's
But
all.
he just said he wasn't there at all.
Correct.
Oh, boy.
According to one of the officers, quote, James then acted confused and said he felt too much pressure, that he felt the same way he had when he was questioned after his wife disappeared. But he said he knew his wife Jenny was alive because he had seen her 2 weeks after she left their house. And he said that she had sent Christmas presents to their children every year and that her parents had had contact with her since. But before the officers could ask any more questions, James' girlfriend, Linda Marquis, came home and literally got between the officers and James and told the police to leave. So at this point, the police were asking themselves the very question that you're likely asking yourself, and that is, what do you mean your wife disappeared? Also, we're talking about one woman, and then you just start rattling off about another woman? Feels weird. So, Jenny Lynn Sear was born February 6, 1954, in Danbury, Connecticut. A few years later, her family moved to Maine, where in 1969, Jenny would meet James Hicks on a school bus. They were high school sweethearts who got married in 1970 after discovering that Jenny was pregnant. They had a daughter in 1971, so Jenny dropped out of school to raise their daughter while James tried to find work. The couple struggled financially and ended up moving in with Jenny's parents. In 1973, James graduated from high school and started working at a local wood mill before changing over to construction. But things between James and Jenny were strained after Jenny discovered that James had been cheating on her. So at the beginning of 1974, they filed for divorce. But when they discovered that Jenny was pregnant a second time, they called off the divorce to give their marriage another shot. Their son was born later that year. And things seemed to be going well in their marriage until Jenny mysteriously disappeared in July 1977. James told police he believed Jenny left him for another man and moved to Florida. But Jenny's family were adamant that Jenny would never leave her children behind. The children were 2 and 6 at the time. And while Jenny's family were incredibly suspicious of James, there was no crime scene, no body, and no witnesses. So police quickly ran out of leads, and Jenny's case went cold. At the time of her disappearance, Jenny was just 23 years old.
Oof.
When Geraldine Towers went missing in the fall of 1982, police initially thought she just abandoned her children and ran off with a random man. But now that James Hicks was linked to the case, police started to wonder if something more sinister had happened to Geraldine. So when their leads ran out on Geraldine's case, they decided to reopen Jenny's case in the hopes that new leads there would allow them to kind of solve both cases. So investigators focused on Jenny's case, which is probably something they should have done back in 1977.
Uh, yeah.
But, I should just be happy they got to it eventually. So when the investigators looked closer at Jenny's case, they discovered that at the time of her disappearance, the family had a live-in babysitter. A couple of years after their son was born, Jenny started working in the kitchen at a nursing home while James was doing various construction jobs. They needed someone to watch the kids. Now, I don't know how they came to meet, but Jenny ended up hiring a teenager named Susan Matley to be their live in babysitter. Investigators tracked Susan down in March 1983 and discovered she was living in Massachusetts. According to Susan, when she first met James and Jenny Hicks, she was living in foster care and the situation was unpleasant at best. So somehow arrangements got made that allowed Susan to live with James and Jenny as a live in babysitter. Susan was 15 at the time, so I have a lot of questions as to how that worked and whether Susan attended school. Was she paid for this? Was she treated kind of like a foster child? I'm not 100% sure. I couldn't find answers. I have to let it
Feels
go.
kind of vaguely like human trafficking, but
It feels weird, but
right? Like,
I
oh,
don't.
you're living in a bad situation, so you can come and live with us and work for like that's a I mean, I wouldn't have thought that that was ever legal, but I guess this was also the 70s?
Yeah, I just want to know, like, did she attend school? Because if so,
Right.
like,
Well, again, especially if
I
it's
don't know.
because both parents are working all day, then it would appear that the live-in babysitter would be like a nanny in the daytime. So, great question.
And then a 15-year-old is taking care of a 2-year-old and a 6-year-old all day? I mean, that feels like a lot. Again, I have a lot of questions that there were not
Yeah.
answers for,
Yeah.
because I'd like you to know the sheer number of James Hicks in the America who've
Mm.
done things that weren't nice is
Jesus.
astronomical.
Always the
So
way.
you always have to, like, just check and double check that you got the right guy, because
Yeah.
wowza. So yeah, look, I don't know how it happened that she ended up living there. I also don't know how long Susan lived with the family. But Susan said when she first moved in, things seemed blissful between Jenny and James. She said you could tell they really loved each other. But soon, James started having random fits of anger. And in July 1977, James made a pass at Susan, who I'll remind you was 15. James was 26.
Ugh.
So Susan struggled to get away from James and he burnt her neck with his cigar.
Oh my God.
Susan then told Jenny what happened, and good on her. And Jenny told her not to worry because she was planning to ask James for a divorce. Since Jenny knew that James wouldn't take the news well, she asked Susan to be out of the house for a prolonged amount of time that evening. When Susan arrived home later that night around 4 a.m., she found James and Jenny in the living room. Jenny was lying motionless in an awkward position on the couch, while James was sitting in a chair, staring at the TV, even though there was nothing on the screen but just like snow.
Oh God.
When Susan asked about Jenny, James said she was sleeping. Susan said she was scared, so she went to her own room where she then heard shoes being dragged across the floor before the sound of James driving away in his car. When police spoke with neighbors about that night, some reported hearing Jenny and James fighting around 2 a.m. Some even claimed to have heard a woman scream, "Jimmy, stop." And to that I say, did you talk to those neighbors when she first went missing?
Did they talk
Because
to Susan? Because this is all pretty intense information.
yeah, because if you had taken Jenny's case seriously right from the start, we wouldn't be sitting here today talking about Geraldine Towers. I am getting ahead of myself, but yeah, a lot of questions there. So on July 19th, the day after or morning after this supposed fight, Jenny was gone. James went to Jenny's sister's house claiming he was looking for her. James told the sister that Jenny had said she was leaving and moving to Florida. But that was completely out of character for Jenny to leave her children behind. Not to mention, she also left her purse and her glasses at home. Her glasses, which she actually needed to see for driving, especially. So the next day, James contacted the police to say his wife was missing and he believed she'd run off with another man. A few days later, Jenny's mother filed a missing persons report implicating James in her daughter's disappearance. And when the police questioned James, he admitted he had pushed Jenny around a few times, but he never did anything to hurt her. Uh, and since there was no physical evidence proving otherwise, the police just took him at his word and the case went cold. So, who the heck is this James character? Well, James Rodney Hicks was born April 17th, 1951, in Etna, Maine. Not much is known about his childhood, but I know there were at least a couple of siblings and that their father left when James was fairly young. It was also said that throughout his childhood, James showed many signs of cruelty towards animals. I didn't get details, but I also didn't want details, so
Yeah.
I was willing to leave it there. So, in high school, James was an athlete. He was part of a golf team, football, volleyball, cross country, track. He met Jenny in 1969. She was 15. He was 18. So I don't love it, but I also am like, "Yeah, I've heard worse, but I don't love it."
Yeah.
So when Jenny became pregnant, the two got married and eventually moved in with Jenny's parents. As I mentioned earlier, things were strained enough that they filed for divorce in 1974, only to rescind it when they discovered that Jenny was pregnant. As a reminder, they were married in 1970 and were planning on getting a divorce in 1974. And at that point, the divorce was because James had been caught having an affair. James admitted that by that point, he'd already been cheating on her for at least a year or two. So basically, cheating like a year into their marriage, which is
Mm.
horrifying on so many levels. It's also horrifying that it turns out their marriage wasn't as sweet and loving as people thought. It turns out they fought constantly, and Jenny had been hospitalized multiple times because of it.
Ugh.
Again, did the police know this when Jenny first went missing? I know there was no physical evidence of foul play, but I feel if James had been properly interviewed in 1977, they would have discovered what happened to Jenny a lot sooner than they did. Also, if they had checked, I don't know, medical records, hospital, anything, they would have found out a lot more information. So, Jenny Hicks goes missing in July 1977 at the age of 23. According to James, she just takes off, leaves her children, leaves her money, leaves all her belongings behind. Days later, their babysitter, Susan, moved to Ohio to live with a friend. But before you worry about James having to take care of two children on his own, shortly after Jenny disappeared, James started dating a woman named Fern Goodsoe. And look, I'm not here to judge, but dating someone right after your wife goes missing feels, I don't know, suspicious, insensitive, creepy, just outright wrong. Pick one. But I can't hear the name Fern without thinking of the song Me Fern Brady, which is from series 14 of Taskmaster. So shout out Fern Brady, and shout out to the UK version of Taskmaster, which I mentioned repeatedly on this show. It's Little Rex Horn. Sorry. Anyhow, so according to Fern, she and James dated for well over a year. And while they were together, he remodeled the home he shared with Jenny, including getting rid of all the furniture, and then he sold the house and moved in with Fern. Again, at this point, he just thinks his wife is missing. So,
Right.
unfortunately, things didn't work out with Fern, and in 1978, about a year after Jenny went missing, James started dating Linda Markey. Now, we know there's a lot of overlap there because James said he started dating Fern a few months after Jenny went missing, and Fern said they were together for well over a year. And yet,
Right.
James started seeing Linda a year after Jenny went missing, which means he would have still been in the thick of it with Fern at the time he started seeing Linda. This man's relationship timeline is exhausting, and we aren't even halfway. So, when James meets Linda, they each had two children from previous relationships. And at some point between 1978 and 1983, James and Linda would have two more children together, a son and a daughter. They moved in together shortly after meeting in 1978 and were still together in 1983 when investigators grew suspicious of James and tracked down Susan Matley. At this point, investigators believed that James was responsible for Jenny's disappearance, but it's hard to convict a man for murder without a body. So they searched local swamps and wells, hoping to find Jenny's remains, but found nothing. But investigators pushed ahead anyway, and a grand jury agreed that James could be indicted. So, 6 years after Jenny's disappearance, James was arrested for her murder in October 1983. And since the evidence against James was circumstantial at that point, they relied heavily on the testimony from the babysitter, Susan Matley. James pleaded not guilty, but after a 10-day trial in March 1984, the jury found James guilty of fourth-degree murder, which is now considered manslaughter in the state of Maine. James Hicks was sentenced to 10 years in prison. But before you think that's the end of the story, don't forget that the disappearance of Geraldine Towers was the entire reason police reopened Jenny's case in the first place. And when James went to prison for Jenny's murder, Geraldine's case was no closer to being solved.
Wow, wow, wow. This is riveting. I am deeply disturbed, but also cannot wait to find out what happens next. Let's take a quick break, hit the can, grab another drink, and we're going to be right back with more on the James Hicks episode of True Crime and Cocktails. Clap two on three. One, two, three. Welcome back to this episode of True Crime and Cocktails. We are, of course, discussing the James Hicks episode of the show. Before the break, we heard a tale as old as time, which is if we had arrested him for the crime the first time, perhaps the second crime wouldn't have been committed.
Yeah.
But again, I'm getting ahead of myself. So what you got next for us?
Well, very briefly, I did Google black eyed peas. Gotta get.
I'm listening.
It's from the song Boom Boom Pow. And what they are saying so many times is gotta get that. So I was close, but not. It's
Well,
very like a gotta get like it's very quick. So it gotta get that see, it doesn't even sound right to me.
I'm gonna be honest with you, it's a missed opportunity because "gotta get" sounds better, and I feel like it sounds like it means something, and we don't know what exactly that is, but it's something.
Yeah. I don't
And I would
know.
like to congratulate you because now we've officially entered something new into the True Crime and Cocktails lexicon. Gotta get.
Yeah, look, I don't know how they didn't see it because it's literally right there. Um, and I mean, they are lyrical masters.
Sure.
It's so 2000 and late, like, or
Yeah.
you're so to that something doesn't matter. The point is, Again, my apologies for mistyping the wrong name. The synopsis was the last thing I wrote on this episode, and I did try and get that done quickly today before doing something else very quickly before I had to leave the home. I just arrived home just in time to record this. So again, just getting by, but also just getting. See, I don't know if it I don't know if that's even necessary.
We're gonna find out.
You gotta get. Like it just feels right.
Yeah.
I don't know. So now James didn't let a little thing like prison get between him and Linda Markey. The couple had been living together since 1978. They had 6 children in their household, including James' 2 children with Jenny, Linda's 2 children from a previous relationship, and then the 2 children that James and Linda had together. I don't know when they were born, but I heard that the youngest was an infant when James went to prison.
Right.
All 6 kids were present at the prison when James and Linda got married in August 1985.
Okay.
Um, in her defense, she really believed James was innocent, and that Jenny had just run off. Also, the only reason they could get married is because Jenny had to be legally declared dead. Because
Right.
otherwise, they wouldn't have been able to divorce, so it wouldn't have been a legal marriage. But no, so it worked out for both of them, I guess. Um, So during his time in prison, the newly remarried James was a model prisoner. So much so, in fact, he was granted early release in 1990 after serving about 6.5 years. James and Linda then moved their family to the small town of Brewer, Maine, where James got a job doing maintenance at the Twin City Motel. And while James relocated and tried to move on with his life, Newport Police Chief James Ricker still kept tabs on James Hicks because Ricker believed Hicks was responsible for the disappearance of Jerry Lynn Towers. He just couldn't prove it yet. So, after a year of living in Brewer, James and Linda got divorced. But in typical James fashion, he soon started seeing a woman named Karen Gom, whose sister was married to James' brother Steve.
Wait. So his sister-in-law?
Essentially, yes.
Oh my God.
Yeah. James and Karen were soon married, and to help with finances, they moved in with Karen's parents. But also in typical James fashion, they separated 3 times before officially divorcing in 1992. And if 2
Wow.
marriages in a small span feels like a lot, just know those weren't the only relationships that James had during that same time frame. In 1990, James started an affair with a coworker named Louise Robertson. They had a daughter together in 1991, although James denied that the child was his. To be clear, a blood test proved he was the father. The
Wow.
affair ended in 1994, and Louise told police that James had never mentioned his first wife at all or the fact that he had any other children.
Wow.
hmm and if you're keeping up with the dates, that means that his affair with Louise was happening during both his marriage to Linda and his marriage to Karen. I can barely keep this guy's personal life straight. Honestly, while writing these notes, I had to create a separate Word document on my computer to keep an ongoing timeline of his personal life. No one should have this many overlapping relationships. Just no one, especially shit people. But I
Yeah.
guess that's who's going to do it, right? And because James couldn't possibly be alone, around the time he ended things with Louise, he started a relationship with Lynn Willette, who had recently started working at the same motel where James had been working since his release from prison. I don't know how much Lynn knew about his dating history, but shortly after his breakup with Louise, James and Lynn moved in together. And since we know James as well as we do by now, it's more than possible that those relationships, there was an overlap there.
Right.
And while James was out there living his best life, the family of Sherilyn Towers was still desperate to learn what happened to her. And since witnesses claimed that Sherilyn was last seen with James Hicks,
Carolyn.
sorry, Sherilyn. Oh my God. Did I write Sherilyn for the rest of the episode? Best of luck, Christy. Oh God, my apologies.
So sorry.
No, I need you to catch me on that.
This one I was like, ooh, this could get confusing fast. I better just pipe up.
Yeah, I mean, also to be clear, we're dealing with a Jenny, Sherilyn, and a Lynn.
Yeah. And a Linda.
Oh, yep. Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's not going well for me mentally. Well, we're gonna we're
We're gonna
gonna
get there. It's great.
we're gonna do our best. So the family of Sherilyn Towers was still desperate to learn what happened to her, and witnesses claimed that Sherilyn was last seen with James. Her family believed James had likely murdered her. So Sherilyn's brother, Vance, decided he was going to make James's life a living hell until he learned the truth. Now, when James was first imprisoned in 1984, he ended up at the same prison where Vance was serving time for a 1975 assault and battery. Vance claimed he approached James at the prison and demanded to know what happened to Geraldine. James calmly told Vance that he did see Geraldine at the Gateway Lounge that night, but she left with a trucker. Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm.
Of course, Vance didn't buy that. So once Vance was released, he found out where James was living and started just following him around with a video camera, like a one man paparazzi sort of situation. Vance would follow James to and from work. He followed him around on errands. In August 1995, it got to the point where James was so irritated, he went to the police station and filed a formal complaint against Vance for harassment. James' girlfriend, Lynn Willette, accompanied James when he filed his report. Then, 9 months later, James called the police to say Lynn had gone missing.
Oh my God.
James claimed that he and Lynn broke up, and the last time they spoke, Lynn seemed despondent, and James was just so worried that she might try and take her own life. Lynn's car was found 6 days later at a truck stop in Herman, Maine, which is about 9 miles west of Brewer. Her car was locked and it was parked in the spot furthest from the road, but there was no sign of Lynn anywhere. And just 3 months after Lynn disappeared, James, the man so concerned about Lynn's well being that he called the police, moved in with his new girlfriend, Brandy Mayo. At the time, James was 45. Brandy was 18.
No.
And to make matters worse, neighbors reported that James was physically abusive towards Brandy.
Ugh.
James and Brandy had a daughter in 1997, but the following year, the Department of Human Services in Maine removed the child from the home and placed her in foster care.
Oh God.
Months later, James and Brandy got married. Now, when you're linked to one missing persons case, the outside world might not give you a second look. But when you're linked to three, you start getting a lot of unwanted attention. And the media started following him around, and he was mentioned in the local papers so often that James said he felt ostracized and was no longer comfortable living in Brewer.
Oh,
So
what a shame.
I know, poor baby, right? So in June 1999, James and Brandy moved to Levelland, Texas, even though leaving the state meant that the state of Maine would officially get custody of James and Brandy's daughter. But James was like, nah, we're good. We got to go. I also don't know why they chose Texas, but So they moved to Texas, and James starts working as a handyman. And in early April 2000, Brandy and James had a son,
Oh my
which for those
God.
keeping track at home was James' seventh child.
Yep.
However, just days after the child was born, the child was removed from the home by Child Protective Services due to the couple's history. Sadly, I don't know what happened to any of the children, as they've all chosen to live in anonymity, which I absolutely respect. I just hope that they all grew up in loving, safe environments. So, even though
Yeah.
James didn't seem to have any communication with any of his previous children, he was pretty pissed about this youngest son being taken away. So he was in a horrible mood on April 8th when he arrived at the home of 67-year-old June Moss, who had hired James to do some work for her around the house. James, who June said was usually very soft spoken, went red in the face and started shouting about how long the job was taking him and how he'd likely never finish. June said James told her that his son had been taken away, and when June became concerned for her safety, she went to grab the phone, and James unplugged the phone and yanked the wires out of the wall. He then locked the doors to the house, disconnected the second phone, and according to June, while James was storming around the house in a rage, he said, quote, "I've been married 4 times. I killed my wife and did 10 years in Maine. I'm not going back."
Wowzer.
Yeah. Also, sir, you didn't do 10 years.
No.
You didn't even do 7.
Nope.
So, James told June that he needed to get out of Texas, and he pulled out a gun, pointed it at June's head, and made her write him a check for $1,250, and then made her sign a paper which transferred the title of her car over to James. James then forced June to drink an entire bottle of cough syrup.
Jesus.
He asked her if she had a gun in the house. She said there was one in the bedroom. So when James headed off to the bedroom to look for it, June got up and ran the fuck out of that house, went to a neighbor who called 911. June thankfully survived the ordeal, and 2 days later, James was arrested and charged with aggravated robbery of an elderly person,
Oh
which
my
is
god.
taken very seriously in the
Y
state of Texas.
yes.
Since James had a previous record and since he used a gun during the robbery, he was facing a maximum life sentence
Oh,
for
yeah.
that. James' wife Brandy filed for divorce and got an order of protection against him. She said she was going to try and regain custody of her son. So James sat in jail for a couple of weeks before he tried to make a deal. It turns out that James feared for his safety in Texas and wanted to be transferred to a prison in Maine. So he spoke with that, police chief who had been keeping an eye on him for a very long time and who had also contacted police in Texas to go, "Hey, heads up. This
Yeah.
asshole's moving to your area and he's dangerous. Keep an eye on him."
Right.
Um, so that police chief got involved, but then also so did Detective Joseph Zamboni, um, who didn't wanna give James something for nothing, so he agreed he would help get him transferred to Maine if James was willing to confess to other murders. When James questioned this, the detective asked him about 4 unsolved murders and disappearances that had happened in Maine while James was living there. The cases included Geraldine Towers, Lynn Willett, and Ellen Cote, a 23-year-old teacher who went missing in June 1975 while moving from Philadelphia to Bangor. Her body was found off the Old County Road in Newport 2 years later in June 1977. The fourth case involved Leslie Spellman, a 26-year-old yoga teacher who disappeared while hitchhiking with her dog from Vermont to Bar Harbor. Her body was found in June 1977. Her dog was found unharmed about a mile from Leslie's body. James denied any knowledge or involvement in Ellen and Leslie's cases, saying, quote, "I have enough problems with the women I know, let alone going out and picking up people I don't know." As of this record, both Ellen Cote and Leslie Spellman's cases remain unsolved. So in September 2000, James finally admits to being responsible for the deaths of Geraldine Towers, Lynn Willett, and his first wife, Jenny Hicks. As part of his deal to get transferred, James agreed to fully cooperate on all three cases, including telling people where the remains were buried. So now we get to the more gruesome part where James outright confesses to the three murders and tells police exactly what happened to those women and what he did to their remains. So
Oh, no.
just know that I've made sure to add bits that I found that I thought would help Lauren with her diagnosis.
Thank you so much.
Of course. It's what I live for. So sorry. Let me take that back. To quote Ursula, it's what I do. It's what I live for. And that, even though I haven't seen in years, I can guarantee I don't have to Google if I got that right.
Yeah.
That I know. Black Eyed Peas, I have to Google. Beauty and the or Little Mermaid, I do not.
Sometimes you just gotta get.
I just feel now that has to be the new, like, I don't know. It's got to be something positive.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, yeah. If we keep using it, it's going to end up being my autobiography title, which is probably better than a bag of worms. Which I will also say, I love that I'm taking us off on a tangent, but in the first episode, maybe second episode, I don't know. In one of the episodes of Dead Boy Detectives, somebody uses the phrase bag of worms. I was like, hold the fucking phone. So I Googled and I was like, did anybody call it? No. But they absolutely did call it in the show. And what I wouldn't give to know it's somehow linked back to us because it
Oh,
just
I
felt
say
like
it is.
weird.
I say it is. I automatically went, "Who do I know that's working on that show that would have listened to our podcast?"
Just, I mean, to them, I say, what an honor.
Yeah.
What an honor. And also, the character who said it is an actress I'm obsessed with who was also in Claws and Justified. So it was lovely.
There
I
you
loved it
go.
entirely. So, anyhow, I'm getting distracted. So, we are going to take James' confession, one victim at a time. So, James told investigators that while he loved Jenny Hicks, they had problems in their marriage. He said in the middle of the night on July 19th, he and Jenny got into an argument about James being inappropriate with the babysitter. He said he took off his belt and strangled Jenny with it. He admitted both of their children were in the house sleeping at the time the
Oof.
murder occurred. James then waited a few hours because he was just unsure of what to do. And around 5 a.m., he wrapped Jenny's body in a blanket and placed her in the trunk of his car. Then he went to work as usual. On the way home from work, he stopped on a quiet road, opened the trunk, and, quote, just sat there and watched, looked at her for a while. I didn't know what I was going to do. So he shut the trunk and drove home and just left her body there for days. James said he came to the decision to dismember Jenny's body. Her remains were then buried in random spots in the backyard, with exception to Jenny's head and her hands, which he placed in a cooler that he then filled with cement. The cooler was kept in the house and was often used by the children as a seat at the kitchen table.
Jesus Christ.
I pray that those children never, ever, even now as adults, ever learn what was in that cooler.
I hope so too.
Jenny Hicks was described as a wonderful person and a devoted mother. She was 23 at the time of her
Beautiful.
death. Regarding Geraldine Towers, James admitted he was at the Gateway Lounge on October 16th, 1982. He said he bought a few drinks for a few women, including Geraldine. James said that it was the first time he'd ever met Geraldine. At closing time, James offered Geraldine a ride home, but she declined, saying she was just going to walk. James drove off, but then noticed he needed gas, so he turned around and went back to the nearest gas station. While pumping gas, Geraldine happened to walk past, and again, James offered her a ride. This time she accepted, and they went to the Newport swimming hole where they parked between the sawmill and the lake. James said that they just kind of sat there and talked for a while, and then out of nowhere, James climbed into the back seat. Geraldine told him to get back in the front seat, and according to James, quote, "The next thing I remember, I knew she was strangled. I don't remember doing it."
Fascinating.
James said he froze once he realized what had happened. He waited for a while before getting into the driver's seat and driving away. At one point, he stopped the car because he heard Geraldine making some sort of gurgling noises. James thought she might have been alive in that moment, but he couldn't feel a pulse, so he just put her body in the back seat of his car and drove home. Then he just went about life as normal with Geraldine's body in the trunk of his car for a week. Then one night after work, he carried her to the field behind his house where he, quote, laid her body down on the ground beside the woods and laid a bunch of cardboard and wood and stuff like that all over her. A week later, he dismembered Geraldine's body. One night
This
after
is fascinating.
one night after work, he, quote, cut her up, put her in grain bags, and dug a hole and put her in it. He recalled using a knife that is often used to cut insulation. When the detectives asked James how he knew how to cut up a body, he said, quote, "I just followed the bones."
That's chilling.
Fucking creepiest thing I've ever heard. So
Wow.
James said he buried the remains 10 to 12 inches deep in a 4 by 4 foot area behind his home. Then one day on his way to work, he put Geraldine's clothes in a dumpster off the highway. He said there was no blood on the clothing, so he knew they wouldn't draw any sort of attention. And while killing a person and cutting up their body is chilling enough, I think for me, the most chilling part of Geraldine's death is that James admitted that Geraldine hadn't done anything to set him off that night. He just killed her for no reason without even thinking about it. To be clear, if Geraldine had set him off in some way, she still did not deserve what happened to her. I'm just saying it feels even darker to me when he seemingly killed her just because. In fact, James said none of the victims had done anything wrong. He even suggested his mother's death, which happened right before Lynn, might be linked to Lynn's death somehow. James said the only woman he ever spent time thinking about killing was his ex-wife, Linda Marquis. Linda was lucky to survive that relationship.
That's really interesting.
It's fascinating to me to have a serial killer known for killing women that he's intimate with, although I don't believe he was with Geraldine Towers. But it's just fascinating that he's like, they did nothing wrong. You know who did? The one I wanted to kill, but never did.
Well, that's all part of it.
Of course.
It's gotta be,
Of
right?
course. Oh, yeah. Geraldine Towers was described as kind, generous, and a loving mother. She was 34 at the time of her death. With Lynn Willette, James admitted they'd broken up prior to her death and that Lynn, sorry, had moved in with her mother. On May 25th, Lynn stopped by the house to pick up some of her mail that had been delivered. According to James, quote, she stopped at the house and we talked for a while. And then we went for a ride and came back, and one thing led to another, and I just snapped. James then wrapped Lynn's body in a blanket and placed her in a wooden box that he normally used for tools. He said it was about 18 inches high, 18 inches wide, and 3 feet long, which is not a large space.
No.
Lynn's body remained in the box for 2 to 3 days at James' house before being moved to the motel where he worked. He then drove her car to the truck stop where it was found and rode a bicycle the 9 miles back to Brewer. After about a week, James laid down a sheet of plastic before cutting up her body. He ended up blacking out at the sight of blood because apparently he was a bit squeamish, he said, when it came to blood.
Okay.
When he came to, he cut up the body, making sure to place the head and hands separately in a 5-gallon bucket, which he filled with cement. He put the bloody blanket and plastic sheet in a dumpster at a local grocery store, then buried the body parts in a wooded area near Jenkins Beach, which is about 15 miles south of Brewer. He went back the next day and buried the bucket in the same place. James admitted he later took his wife Brandy to that spot multiple times, although he swears Brandy never knew why they visited.
Mm-hmm.
James said, quote, Lynn was the one who really haunted me. I always think of Jenny because of the kids, but Lynn's the hardest. He said that Lynn knew him and how to make him feel better, and that of all the women he'd been involved with, he loved Lynn the most. In fact, he said even 4 years after her death, he was still in love with her, and that even his current wife, Brandy, knew his feelings for Lynn. Lynn Willette was described as fiercely independent and a talented artist. She was 40 at the time of her death. During the confession, James told Detective Zamboni that they could have caught James a lot sooner if they'd taken Jenny's disappearance more seriously.
Jesus.
He said if they had gotten search warrants for when Jenny's family first reported her missing, they easily would have discovered Jenny's body either in the trunk of his car or hidden under the debris in his backyard. He said the police need to, quote, treat missing persons like a violent crime. And somehow, for the only time in history, I'm agreeing with a serial killer. Not on my 2024 bingo card, but there you have it. There's also something so cocky to being like, dudes, you could have caught me in 77, you dumb fucks, but you didn't take it seriously enough.
Well, and this is just the like textbook narcissism where he's like, I was smarter than you. You could have caught
Oh,
me. All of this arrogance, like, make no mistake, it's not because he's being altruistic. Obviously, he doesn't, he's glad he didn't get caught, but he also never
of
thought that he would
course.
get caught because a true narcissist is going, oh, I'm smarter than everybody. I'm smarter than the cops. And then essentially in that moment, I think for him, that's him wanting the cops to know he's smarter than them. Because
Oh,
even
that
though he
makes
got
sense.
caught in the end, which is not, part of his
Sure.
belief system, he's like, but you would have caught me a lot sooner if you'd taken it seriously. So that's
Yeah.
one for me.
You caught me at one point, but I still got away with it for over 20 years.
Right.
Yeah, makes sense.
Yeah.
James said police would have struggled to pin Geraldine's death on him, but that Lynn's head and hands were at the motel in a bucket, which he had lined up next to similar looking buckets. And they were there not once, but twice during police visits. Um, it's as though he was trying to tempt fate and just hope he got caught, but just is a prick.
Well,
That's
but
just
for
all it
him,
is.
it's like that's part of the rush, right? Is that it's like it's right here, but I know that I'm smarter than you, so you're never gonna like that's
Right.
part of what you get.
Because they're
Yeah,
not going to also start searching all those buckets.
right.
But, uh, fucking prick. Still. Ah, James admitted that he strangled each of the women when their backs were to him, which I found very interesting.
Mm-hmm.
And after several days, he dismembered the bodies. Although he said he didn't do that for any particular reason. The similarity between the three was that James claimed he didn't realize he was killing them until they were dead. He said something just comes over him and he can't control himself.
Hmm.
A direct quote from James, quote, "They're all basically the same. It's like I don't know how it happened. I don't remember it exactly. I don't know what I was doing. It's like I do it without a reason. It could happen to anyone. Anyone could snap or black out and do what I did." During his confession, James said, quote, "I'm sorry for the victims, especially the families and my family. I'm sorry. I'm sorry for the pain and that they had to wait so long." He said he got no enjoyment from killing and that he had planned on confessing on his deathbed. When asked by a detective, James admitted had he not been caught, he likely would have killed again. In October 2000, James was extradited to Maine, where he helped investigators locate the remains of Jenny, Geraldine, and Lynn. 4 dentists and 7 dental technicians confirmed the remains belonged to the 3 women. DNA testing was then also used to verify the findings. James Hicks pled guilty to aggravated assault of June Moss and was sentenced to 55 years. He was then found guilty of the murders of Geraldine Towers and Lynn Willett and given 2 life sentences. As of this record, James currently remains incarcerated in Maine State Prison. Reporting for True Crime and Cocktails, I gotta get.
It's glorious. Wow, I have so many thoughts. This is like every bit of my psychologist hat profiling is buzzing because this one is interesting. And I've kind of have 2 different minds about it. But listen, I'm getting ahead of myself. Let's hit the can, grab one more drink, and then we're gonna be back for me to nerd out on my FBI profiling hobby on this episode of True Crime and Cocktails. Clap 3 on 3. 1, 2, 3. Welcome back to the James Hicks episode of True Crime and Cocktails. So much to discuss here. And I don't want to be jazzed about a serial killer, but again, it's the psychology that I'm jazzed about.
Of course.
All right. I'm gonna jump around because here's the first thing I want to say in terms of me building a profile on this guy. And I need to make it clear I'm not trained. This is just something I
Feel
am
passionately
I got a
about.
real passion. It's a hobby. I have absolutely nothing to back any of this up. I got to put that out there. We're dealing with an unreliable narrator because ultimately, do we really believe that we can trust everything that this man says in terms of state of mind, in terms of experience? I don't think so, because as you were going through the details of his confessions, there's so many glaring kind of contradictions. He's saying things like, I don't enjoy the killing, but then he also says, well, I don't remember it. He says that each one of them, I strangled each of them when their back was to me, but then he also says, I black out and I just, all of a sudden she was dead. It doesn't add up.
Yeah.
I think that there's a real possibility of, there's a couple of things. One, did he black out or did he block it out? That's one possibility. I tend to think the truth is something else. I tend to think he probably has an opinion about what it would mean to be a serial killer. The fact that he went out of his way to say, I didn't enjoy it, right?
Yeah.
That to me is a huge key into this person's psyche, because that suggests to me that he knows that it's probably not a, to be crass, great look to like killing people. And he still seems to care what other people think of him. Another piece to that would fit in that part of the profile is his incessant need to be with as many women as possible. He wants people to think he's great. He wants attention. The opinions of these women are obviously important to him. Everything's got crossover in terms of the relationships and the affairs and having so many children and all of the, and the marriages, and like, this to me speaks to someone that like really needs to feel important, really needs to feel respected. And of course, he's going to lose people's respect if it turns out that he likes killing. So do I believe that? I don't know. I mean, listen, Dahmer talked about how he didn't like the killing. His whole thing was wanting to control someone completely, and the killing was a means to an end for him, because then he could ingest the pieces of the people, and then that was like he was truly controlling them, which is chilling and twisted and all of the above. Do I buy it with him? I do, because I think with him, it all signs pointed to that. And again, there was much more to that story, which if you know that story, great. And if not, listen, we'll get to it another time. But the point is that to me, with this guy, I just don't know if I buy it. I don't know that he was going out to kill for the sake of killing, but I think that it's possible that since he has also a history of being abusive with women, we know this. He has anger problems, all of the above. Do I think that, because he also said, well, when I was doing it, I didn't know I was killing them. It was just that they were dead. It's like, so which is it then? Because you say that, but then you also say, well, I didn't like doing it. Again, we're dealing with an unreliable narrator. He is the narrator to the story. None of us will ever know the truth. So he also knows that he has the ability to tell the story however he wants to tell it, minus the things that are facts, the ways we find the remains and whatnot. We know that that's true or false. But in terms of his state of mind, we can't trust his story,
No.
right? So, oh my God, there's so much. I'm buzzing. Yeah, I'm gonna start at the end. I'm gonna work my way back. So again, to me, the fact that he lied to Louise. They had a kid in 1990, they get together. They have a kid in 1991. They're together until 1994. And in that time, she never found out about his wife, Jenny, who had passed, that he had done time for at that point, nor
Correct.
did he mention his 4 children.
Correct.
And this is a question that I have throughout so much of this, where it's like, where are these kids? I guess they're with whatever his actual wife was at the time. But it just feels, again, it's so tragic to me. And it's so sad that then, of course, we know that he gets together with Brandy, who is a child, who's 18 when he is 45. And that's not a mistake, everybody. We all know that this is a man who wants to feel powerful. He wants to feel big. He wants to feel respected. He wants to feel control. Easy way to do that when you're 45 is to go after a woman who is 18. Now, what's fascinating is that he talks about how Lynn is the only woman he ever really loved. She was 40 at the time of her death, which means that she was more, quote,
his
age
age
appropriate for him.
Yeah.
She's also described as being independent and an artist and all of these kinds of things, right?
Yeah.
So it's interesting to me that he would say that that's like essentially the love of his life, that death was the hardest for him. That murder was the hardest for him because he never loved anybody as much as he loved her. So there's a couple of things. It's like, is it a rage killing? Is it what he's saying where he gets overcome with like this demon, like Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde, and then in the moment, whatever happens, happens? Is that the case? Or is it just wanting to feel like you're in control? I mean, again, like a lot of assaults, a lot of physical violence is can stem back, whether it's a, conscious or subconscious thought, to wanting to control somebody.
Sure.
So again, I mean, that's again a fascinating piece of all of this. I think the pieces about the June Moss story are really key when you're kind of trying to put all of this together, because again, this is a woman who isn't an unreliable narrator, right? We have another person telling you this is what he was like. We know that he did fly into a rage, right? But how did she live? This is the thing that's also fascinating, right? He got what he wanted from her. She wrote a check. She signed over the car. Then he says, drink an entire bottle of cough syrup. Do you have a gun? Yes, in the bedroom. He goes to get it. And when he does, she runs. God bless June Moss. My God.
Yeah.
Well done that she managed to get out of there.
100%.
Fantastic. But the details about this I find interesting. Is it that because she was an older woman, it was difficult for him? Is that because that she reminded him of his own mother? Is that part of the reason why the Lynn death was so difficult for him? Because she was not older. She was only 40. But again, I'm just trying to look for any similarities in terms of these stories.
Sure.
But the fact, again, that he got so angry and didn't immediately snap and kill her, to me, is proof that there's flaws to his own confessions.
Oh, 100%.
He's taking the time to disconnect the phone. He's taking the time to make her do all these things. He's taking the time to make her drink the cough syrup. He's taking enough time that she's able to get away. If he has this MO where sometimes I go into a fit of rage, I black out, and when I wake up, the woman's dead, she would be dead. She was an
Yeah.
elderly woman, right?
Yeah.
So again, none of this makes sense to me. Um, in terms of what he's saying, the detail of taking Jenny's head and hands and putting it in the cooler with the cement, which he kept in the house,
Mhm.
also repeats that behavior with Lynn, I believe, right? He
Yes.
put her head and hands in a bucket, which then was at work. Here's what I think is interesting about all of this. His MO becomes he kills the person, he keeps them in his trunk for a little while. Then he moves them somewhere for about a week. Then he comes back, does the dismemberment. Then he does the burying and whatnot. But what's interesting to me is that there are things that he wanted the head and hands of Jenny close to him in the house in the cooler. He wanted the head and hands of Lynn close to him at work in the bucket. We know that he buried Jenny, her parts of her remains in the backyard. We also know that he
Yeah.
sold that house shortly after she, quote, disappeared, or as we know now, was murdered.
Yeah.
And then he moved in with someone else. So that's also a part of this. He wants to, again, feel powerful to me, like he's duping these other people. Like it's like, oh, these
Mhm.
dumb people bought this house and there's pieces of my dead wife in the backyard. The same
Oh,
thing with again, well, you would have caught me sooner if this. Like there's an arrogance to him. The fact that he had put part of Lynn's remains in this one area and then he took Brandy there multiple times.
hmm.
And I believe him that she didn't know. I believe that.
Oh,
But the
sure.
point is that it's like, it's him getting off on the fact that she doesn't know that his dead ex-partner was there. And that's why they were there. That's a twisted part of him too, right? There's a part of him that likes the fact that it's like he knows the secret and nobody else does,
Right.
which speaks again to a profile that wouldn't involve a person who just happens to black out and oops, accidentally murders some women. There's so much care that's going into this. I use the word
Yeah.
care loosely, but you know what I'm saying? There's so much thought that's going into this. The fact again that it's like he's thinking about which pieces of them are going to be close to him and how can he keep the head and hands close to him, but without there being any sign of it? Well, you cover it in cement. Then it's never going to be detected, right?
Sure.
Think about how heavy that cooler would have to be.
Oh, yeah.
So they're dragging it around for the kids to sit on and whatnot. Like that's a constant FU to everybody else that he has a secret,
Mm.
that there's, you know what I'm saying? Like, it's like,
Yeah.
I don't buy this guy's story of like, oh, I just don't remember. Oops a daisy. I black out in a rage and then whatever. The other reason I don't is because he said himself, like, oh, yeah, if you hadn't caught me, I would have killed again.
Yeah.
There's no remorse here.
Mm.
There's no sense of like him saying, oh, I didn't like the killing. That still doesn't say there's any remorse. It doesn't even sound like he really has remorse for killing Lynn. The way he words it is like, well, I loved her more than anybody else. That was hard for me. Not, I deeply regret killing someone I loved so much. There's a big difference.
Oh, yeah. He didn't seem to have remorse for any murder.
Right. So again, this isn't just somebody who, again, has a massive anger problem or whatever. I'm just trying to like break down why I think his story is bullshit. I also think the statement, which will keep me up at night from now on for probably the rest of my life, how did you know how to cut up bodies? I just followed the bones.
Yeah.
That is so chilling. The only woman
Yeah.
he thought of killing was Linda, who he didn't kill. I don't know that I buy it. I think again that it's like, I think it's all a power struggle for him. I think that there's also, she served a purpose to him, right? She was taking care, I believe she was taking care or would have potentially been taking care of his kids, right? Because they had the 6 kids together. It was him and Linda,
Yeah.
right?
While he
So,
was in prison.
right. So the whole, he let her live. He chose for her to live. It wasn't that she was the only one he thought of killing. Get real. It's that she served a purpose to you. She was taking care of all of the children. And he was in jail. He was barely around her for a certain amount of time.
That is very true.
Right? So again, it's like I just feel like everything he's saying is like shades of a lie, shades of the truth. It's not 100%. It's not 100%. Um, Again, he admitted to strangling them when their backs were turned, but then he had also said that he doesn't remember killing Geraldine. I don't buy any of this. Um, I have no enjoyment of killing, but I likely would have done it again. You're getting something out of it.
Oh, yeah.
Because if he was really so sick that he was throwing up at the blood and he really didn't like the dismembering, why would he keep doing it? Why was that his repeated MO? And by the way, now I'm not suggesting that these two other unsolved cases were him, but do I think it's more than possible that there are many more bodies that would be attributed to him? Absolutely. He
Oh,
met
of course.
Geraldine at a bar. Here's the other thing I don't trust. I met her at a bar. Also, make no mistake, he deliberately said, I bought a lot of women drinks. This man's value is wrapped up in how many women's attention he has. It's the
Sure.
same reason why he's always having an affair. It's the same reason why he's always overlapping and dating and marriages and whatnot. He didn't have to say that. He wanted to make sure the cops knew, like, I get lots of women. It's all part of the arrogance, all part of the narcissism. He
Mm.
asks her to drive her home. She says no. And then he says, oh, and then I went to get gas and I happened to see her. So we're to believe that you didn't follow her? And then she got in your car willingly? Do we believe that? There would, I mean, again, this was the 70s at the time. Like, there wouldn't have probably been great
Cameras,
security cameras.
right?
Even if there was, the cops didn't try to pull the security footage at the time. So there's no way to know the truth. And do I believe there's a world in which she was taken without her own consent? Absolutely.
Oh, of course.
He didn't like the fact that she rejected him. He
Oh,
bought
yep.
all those women drinks and then in his mind went, I chose her and she turned me down. Fuck her. I'll show her.
Oh, that makes sense.
Because again, it's like, I picked her up in the car. She came with me. Also, why would she suddenly change her mind? And by the way, that's her prerogative. If she did go willingly, that doesn't change anything about her. She doesn't deserve to be murdered. That goes without saying. I'm just saying, is there a world in which, doesn't it sound a little fishy? She said no. I happened upon her as I was getting gas driving home. Then she agreed to come with me. We went to this remote area and just chatted and everything was fine. And then suddenly I, blacked out and killed her. We'll never
Yeah.
know because we also, like, even if they have the remains all these years later, like, good luck doing an autopsy that's going to be in any way reliable after all of that time has passed. We'll never
Yeah.
know, and we'll never know what the level of her own, you know, fight versus agency was in the situation. I merely just put out there that this guy clearly cares what we think about him. He doesn't want the police
Sure.
to know that he likes killing. He wants you to know that women love him. Like, all of these things, I'm
Mm.
like, I don't trust that that was how that whole night went. Why would we
Oh,
trust
no.
that?
No. For
No
example,
way.
um, something that never sat right with me is that Geraldine's stepfather said he heard like a vehicle with a loud exhaust pulled into their driveway and turned the headlights off for long enough that he assumed she was getting dropped off.
Yes.
And he's claiming he picked her up from that gas station and they went off to a swimming hole in the middle of the night, which feels like I just don't buy that part. Um, but there was something at one point where a detective talked to him and he admitted he had a car at the time which had a loud exhaust, but he got it fixed shortly after Geraldine's death. So then I'm just like, did he just legit give her a ride, got to her place, and then was like, how am I letting her, like, she's actually thinking she's going to get out of this car without anything happening between us? She tries to get out. He strangled her there and then took off.
I also believe he's calculated enough. He kills her, goes through her purse, finds her license with her address on it, and then goes and parks the car there. It's the same as the head and the
Mm,
hands in the cooler in the house. She was right
sure.
there. That's him fucking with her
Oh,
family.
sure.
She was right there and you didn't even know. And I was the one that was in control. I was the one that knew the
Right.
secret and the truth. That to me is part of his MO, or I could see it being part of his MO for sure.
Yeah.
If he had that kind of car at the time. And by the way, she said no to him once. What would he have done to get her to come that second time? I don't buy it. I don't buy that she went willingly. Or he managed to say to her, "Come on, let me give you a ride home, whatever." And then he took her somewhere and killed her. Like, I don't know that she just suddenly changed her mind. It's her prerogative to. If
Of
she did,
course.
God bless. But I just am, again, I just don't trust him. But I think you're right. I think that she was absolutely dead in that car at that time. I think he did it to fuck with them. And by the way, him saying, "Well, after I killed Jenny, then I moved, I didn't know what to do. And then I put her in the trunk. And then I spent time looking at her and I didn't know what to do." Bullshit. He wanted to keep her around. He was looking like he did it with every one of them.
Yeah.
He wants to keep them around. He wants to remind himself of what he did. He wants to feel a certain way about it, or he's trying to feel and feels like he's feeling nothing, which is also a possibility, which is chilling too. But I don't believe that it was, I believe that there could have been when he killed the first time, if Jenny was his first kill, I believe there could have been a period after it happened where it was like, what do I do now? But do I believe that's why he left her in the trunk for that amount of time and then moved her body and then did something again? Like, it's the fact that he keeps revisiting the bodies, right? He not only does it,
Right.
keeps them near him for a while, then he moves them somewhere, then he moves them somewhere again. Does that
Right.
sound to you like a blackout rage killer who accidentally kills in a fit of rage? Revisiting the bodies multiple times, then dismembering them, having this whole kind of system. Bullshit. Bullshit. I think he's just trying to, again, try and make himself look better, which is also preposterous. Um, which at this point also makes it infuriating that he was only charged with manslaughter for Jenny's death.
Oh, 100%.
Now, I understand that that was a fight that got out of control, blah, 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 heat of the moment, bullshit, bullshit, whatever. But again, his point, which was our point, which is everyone's point, is that if that had been taken seriously at the time, these other women would still be alive, period. They
A
would not have been
hundred
killed by
percent.
him, wouldn't have happened.
A hundred
Um,
percent.
Only other thing I feel like I need to mention is Detective Joseph Zamboni. What a last name.
Oh, it took everything I had. Everything that I had
Yep.
to let it go at that. It took everything I had. Speaking of hockey related things, it took everything I had to mention Bangor, Maine without going, you know who's from there? Julie the Cat Gaffney from Mighty Ducks 2. Like, it took everything I had.
Well, listen,
They
you
didn't
did
respect
great.
her like they should have.
Um, Listen, this episode has fascinated me. I mean, again, I've come alive in terms of my own profiling. I think that he's absolutely fascinating. I think the truth is something that we will likely never actually know the real truth of what the psychology is of it. But I think that, again, my bottom line, regardless of anything else, is he is an untrustworthy narrator that we can't begin to go like, oh yeah, it was just all fits of rage. No way. Not
Oh,
with what then continued after the fact. No way.
yeah. Look, I have a lot, like I have so many questions about some of the things, but he claimed, again, do we believe him or not? He claimed he was never going to kill June Moss simply because he knew the penalty for it in Texas. And he knew if he killed her, specifically because she was an older person, that he would end up in jail for life.
So that's not a man that has uncontrollable blackout rages and kills.
Yeah.
If he was able to make that mindset and go, well, I can't kill her because of whatever, then that proves my point that that was never the
Mhm.
case for him with any of these other women. Bullshit then.
I think he just assumed that if she drank that entire bottle of cough syrup, that she would just pass out and never wake up. I think is
Right.
what he was assuming. And then he was like, great, no one will ever know I was here. Which, get out, man.
But
Uh,
again, that proves that he can control the killer in him.
yep.
So this concept that it's like, oh, I just black out, I don't remember anything, and then the person happens to be dead is bullshit.
I'm also fascinated with how he was in such a rage about the child, which I mean, by this point, again, this is his seventh child.
Mhm.
Um, and it didn't seem like he gave a shit about any of the first six, especially the first one he had with Brandy, where it was like, if you leave the state gets custody of your child. And they went, he needs to leave the state. He didn't have to. He chose to. So he was like, eh. So I don't know if it was a case of because the child was taken from him as opposed to him leaving the child, which is another like maybe thing about power. And I don't know if he fought this and was angry about it because it was a boy
Right.
over the daughter. I don't know. I'm also fascinated to know, yeah, who raised the kids? Like,
Yeah.
bless Linda. I assume she raised Jenny's two kids while he was in prison. But then it's like, but then what happened after when they broke up? Did the kids stay with her because they'd already been living with her for the nearly 7 years he was in prison? Or did they go to live with Jenny's family? Or
Yeah.
I I don't know. But one other thing, when he was freaking out and yelling at June Moss, he made a comment about how he'd killed his wife and did 10 years for it. But I mean, I was paraphrasing, but he specifically said, I killed my second wife. No, he didn't. Jenny was his first wife, and his second wife was Linda. So
Interesting.
he lied to her about which wife, and he also lied to her about how long he was in prison.
Unless there's something else where like, well, he wouldn't have gotten married prior to Jenny because they met in high school.
Yep.
Yeah, great question. That's
Like, unless
wild.
he just can't keep track and had lied to himself so much that was like, well, I didn't kill Jenny. She ran off. And all he could think of was the one I want to kill is Linda.
Well, the only
So,
other thing I could say is at that point, Lynn was already dead, right?
yes,
So he loved Lynn so much, he perhaps viewed her as his second wife, even though there was other
possible.
wives and whatever. I don't know. Cause he seemed to be like, I felt bad about Jenny because of the kids or like whatever.
Right.
And then Lynn was the only one I've ever loved. So even though there
Yeah.
was other wives, it's possible that for him it was like that was the second wife I killed of all my wives, all my
Oh,
wives,
sure.
right? Even though they weren't necessarily married, it sounds like he viewed her in as seriously. Like again, he's saying that she's the only woman I ever really loved, then it feels like he would view her as a quote unquote wife.
Yeah. Also,
Again,
to be
how his
clear,
brain works, you know.
I when I said I hope that the children were raised in loving and safe environments, I hope Brandy found a loving, safe environment
I
after
hope
that.
so too. I hope so too.
Because to find out all of that and to go through everything that she did while with him, but then after to find out what he had done and how close she was to living with a killer, and then to go further and be told like, oh yeah, I she's not even a blip on my radar as far as who I love.
Yeah.
Jenny, maybe because of the kids. It's like the two kids you had together, like the two kids you had with Brandy, or no? I
Yeah.
gross.
Well, and also the last thing I'll say is that, it's also interesting that you were like, did he care more about the son because it was a boy? Absolutely. I could absolutely believe that to be true. He has a pattern of not exactly respecting women. So I could see him absolutely being more invested in having a son taken away from him than a daughter.
Gross.
So gross. Christy Oxborrow, fantastic work as always. My God, again, this one really got me in terms of all of my uh, passions and hobbies and psychologist hatting. It was a delight for me to get to break it down. And we thank you for your work as always.
Well, I appreciate everyone letting it go that I really fucked up the name there in my notes. Not just my notes, in the notes I gave you. Um, I've had a really long weekend.
You know what? I don't think you need to justify it.
Yeah,
Listen, you're human and these things happen. So no sweat from any of us. I'll speak for everybody.
that's
And we
adorable.
thank you, dear listeners, for joining us on this journey. If you haven't already, give us a follow on the socials on Instagram, Facebook, and YouTube at True Crime and Cocktails, on Twitter at Not Detectives. If you'd like some bonus content, go over to patreon.com/True Crime and Cocktails for more information about our subscription-based service over there. The merch store is still closed. We're doing the best we can, folks. I should, as of the next week, have more answers and hopefully got the store back up and running by then. But we're doing the best we can. I promise you that. And if you'd like to come see our play, my boyfriend and I are
Yeah.
doing in LA, June 27th, 28th, 29th in Los Angeles. The tickets are available in the link in my bio on Instagram at Lauren Elizabeth Ash. So join us if you can. Christy, do you want to tell the people about next week's episode?
On the next True Crime and Cocktails, Grant Solomon.
Again, this is a new one to me. I can't wait to find out all about it. We will be riveted, I'm sure, as always. Christy, do you want to say goodnight to the people?
Good night, Black Eyed Peas.
Good night, you gotta get.